And record flooding in parts of southeast Oregon. The factors combining to create the worst conditions people there have seen in decades. Plus,
I'm Alma McCarty in Lake Oswego, where the city is deciding whether to fight back against public access to Oswego Lake.
This ruling poses a significant threat to the property values of homes.
We need nature to be accessible like breath.
and later, what was it like to be delayed in space 9 months longer than originally scheduled?
We're focused on our mission from day one until we came back.
As two NASA astronauts reflect on their time up there for the first time since returning to Earth. First at 11, we're following breaking news in Hillsboro, where police are searching for shooting suspects, and it appears more than one. This is a look near the scene at a gas station off Cornell and 17th. That's a few blocks west of the Hillsboro airport. Police telling us one person was shot and injured. That person was taken to the hospital and is expected to survive. Officers initiated what's called a reverse 911 call to warn residents in the area about the search. We, of course, will keep you updated there as we learn more. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm David Molko. New tonight in Lake Oswego, city leaders have just decided they will not appeal a judge's decision that opens up the lake to the public. Alma McCarty was at the meeting tonight. It almost sounds like it was packed.
Yeah, definitely a packed house, David. Lots of opinions, lots of people, and just a lot of discussion about who should be able to access the lake. The Lake Oswego Corporation, the association that manages it, filed a notice to appeal earlier this month, but the city will not take up this fight.
In Lake Oswego Monday night, dozens packed City Hall to discuss whether to appeal a Clackamas County judge's decision to allow public access to Oswego Lake.
Tonight is also a chance for you all to hear from one another.
At the beginning of March, the judge ordered the city to stop enforcing an ordinance that prohibits public access to the lake through Millennium Plaza Park and to remove barriers to access like boulders and artwork. The Lake Oswego Corporation quickly filed its notice to appeal, but the city was still weighing its options, seeking legal advice and public input.
From what I'm hearing, the tide has really turned, and there's been an outpouring of support for public access to the lake, both inside Lake Oswego and outside.
Ahead of the special meeting, KGW caught up with Todd Prager, one of the plaintiffs in the years-long fight for lake access.
But I think it's symbolic if the city really does want to be an inclusive community, like they say they want to be, to not join this appeal, which is all about exclusion.
While he and others hoped the city would vote against an appeal, several citizens pushed for city council to go through with it.
I believe it's a waste of taxpayers' money and resources.
Together, we can create a more just and united Lake Oswego for all.
I wonder if we are forgetting the good that opening may make possible.
To make Oswego Lake public was a transformative step for LO, and I urge you not to bend to pressure to go backwards.
I think, from a legal perspective, an appeal from the city is a necessity.
I'm here to share why, from a water quality perspective, it is in our best interest to appeal the court's questionable decision.
It's really concerning to me, the safety things that can happen, even now with so many boats on the lake.
Ultimately, council decided in a 5-2 vote that an appeal by the city was not worth pursuing. The mayor putting it this way.
I like to say the cat is out of the bag. Folks can enter the lake. They are entering the lake, like they have been entering the lake. And it's really imperative that we work collaboratively on putting guidelines and practices in place so that that can be done safely.
Cat out of the bag. Okay, so the Lake Oswego Corporation might still appeal here. So for people who want to use the lake when it comes to the city, what's happening?
Yeah, well, Lake Oswego now has about 2 weeks to get a safety plan in place, and the city manager is supposed to work with the state, with the county, and with the Lake Corporation to come up with that plan and how to regulate access. But it really isn't clear what's going to be included in the plan.
Still a work in progress. We're talking about that one entrance with the steps and the boulders out there, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alma. Appreciate the update here. All right, let's take you outside now and talk about weather on this Monday night. We're 45 degrees in the Rose City on a day where we saw scattered showers and an evening thunderstorm that, dropped some hail in parts of the Portland metro. Chief Meteorologist Matt Savino back with us with your first forecast. Hey there, Matt.
Yeah, it was an impressive little storm that rolled on through Portland. We could see it coming Nothing happening here, but then to the south and a little bit to the west, up the Willamette River, here it was. And then here it came right across downtown Portland. Dropped a fair amount of rain, but it moved on pretty quickly too. You can see the back edge and clearing to the south once that system moved on through. There were several lightning strikes with it, but not anymore. Look, there's nothing really going on in the Portland area at the moment. That doesn't mean there won't be a shower overnight. There is a batch of rain moving up the mid-valley right now from Eugene up towards Corvallis, heading up towards Albany. So we may get a few sprinkles during the overnight hours, but no thunderstorms. This isn't nearly as strong as what we saw earlier this evening. There have been some storms down on the southern Oregon coast tonight. Had some lightning strikes down that way as those cells came on shore. But the heaviest precipitation now will stay to the south. For the day, up to about 1/4 inch in Portland, same in Aurora, a little bit less up in Scappoose, a little bit more in Vancouver. And we look at our rainfall for the month, which is nearly over now, less than an hour away. We are above average with our March rainfall. It makes it our wettest month of the year so far and our wettest March since back in 2017. So yeah, it's been a good one. Now on the Oregon coast and the Washington coast, there's a coastal flood advisory till 6 a.m. because of the high tides. David, back to you.
All right, Matt, we'll see you in a few. Well, let's take you to Southeast Oregon now, where people living in Harney County say they are seeing some of the worst flooding they've experienced in some 70 years, with the governor declaring a state of emergency for the county and the Burns Paiute Reservation. It turns out heavy snowfall this winter, plus a quick warm-up along with last season's wildfires, all may have played a part here. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri explains.
Places like Burns in Southeast Oregon are no stranger to snow.
The issue this year, we've had just a huge amount of snowfall over the winter months.
But what they're not used to,
nobody's seen anything like this since the 1940s.
The flooding that has consumed much of the area since last week.
The whole valley down below.
From Bill Selby's house, you can see the water that started from snowmelt after last week's warm temperatures.
You know, I see a lot of people deciding to stay, a long time in their homes until the last minute. I think people don't really believe it's going to happen to them.
Yesterday alone, nearly a dozen people had to be rescued from the floodwaters. Parts of Harney County have some of the highest snowpack in the state in the Aldrich Mountain Range near the Blue Mountains. Now the snow is melting into the Silvies River because there's nothing to catch it.
The vegetation that would normally hold the snowpack up there, the kind of melt at measured levels through the summer, it doesn't exist anymore, so it's all kind of black ground. And
that's because about 200,000 acres burned last summer from both the Telephone and Falls Fire. And to make matters even worse,
and unfortunately, the wastewater systems are unable to continue to process the wastewater, which has now leached into the floodwaters.
Right now, the Army Corps of Engineers are filling up sandbags to help stop some of the flooding. And Governor Tina Kotek declared an emergency.
And they're still very much in immediate response. So it's going to take us a little bit longer to better understand the resources that are the damages, the extent of the damages, but also the resources that are going to be needed to support the recovery in that community.
The deputy director of the Oregon Department of Emergency Management says they're going to be seeking help from FEMA.
Next week, we'll bring a different picture in that there's still a lot of snow in the hilltops to come down.
And there's still more that's going to fill the Silvies River that's been above flood stage for days. Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
All right, touch and go in Harney County. To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, Amtrak is bringing in trains to replace the versions removed from service last week due to corrosion. 4 new trains will start running between Seattle and Portland later this week. Amtrak says it is trying to resume train service for trips and phase out buses as quickly as possible, but it adds those replacement trains will have a limited number of cars, so they are encouraging passengers to book tickets as early as possible in order to get seats. Well, a heads up for drivers in the gorge starting tomorrow. The Port of Hood River is doing away with the toll booth on the Hood River Bridge as part of the port's transition to fully electronic tolls. The booth, by the way, had already been closed at night since 2023. The port says this full closure will save about $100,000 a year, money that can be used for bridge maintenance and plans for a new bridge. And Kaiser Permanente plans to replace part of its Sunnyside Medical Center in Clackamas with a new 7-story tower taking the place of the 50-year-old main hospital building. It will have the same number of beds, though they'll all be in private rooms. There will also be more ER bays and bigger operating rooms, and what Kaiser says will be Oregon's first fully electric hospital. The old hospital will stay open during construction, with the new complex set to open in 2029. Developing tonight, lawmakers in Salem are considering a bill that would repeal vote by mail and require most people to vote in person. The Republican-sponsored bill had its first hearing in the Senate committee today. The proposal would make in-person voting on Election Day the standard and require people to show government-issued IDs. Now, Oregon was the first state in the country to conduct a presidential election by mail 25 years ago. Many of those in support of the bill say they think vote by mail leads to fraud. However, the vast majority of submitted testimony is opposed to any change.
This bill would have a disproportionate impact on mothers and care providers who rely on the flexibility and accessibility of our current vote-by-mail system.
And if France can do it in a day, so can the state of Oregon.
Thank you.
Let's get back to what we know and stop this fraudulent harvesting of ballots.
Okay, it's important to be crystal clear here. Our Secretary of State says voter fraud is exceedingly rare in Oregon. Since Democrats are in power in both the House and Senate, it's unlikely this bill will move forward. So good to see an outpouring of support and a show of respect as firefighters from across Gresham gathered to welcome back one of their own, returning to work 10 months after he was seriously injured. Spencer Tejadas was part of a crew that responded to a house fire and suffered severe burns when he rushed into a home thinking a child was inside. As Ashley Grams explains, he's now ready to move forward and perhaps to pay it forward from that life-changing day.
An outpouring of love and respect for one of Gresham's own. A few dozen firefighters lined the entrance of the Fire Training Center as Spencer Tejadas returned to work for the first time in 10 months.
How many hugs? How many hugs? How many hugs? Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one.
Friends across the department welcomed him with open arms and, of course, cheers.
I woke up this morning, put the uniform on, and it just felt right.
Last spring, Tejadas and his crew were at a house fire. When he heard a child might be inside, Tejadas went into the burning home. While inside, the room erupted in flames and Tejadas suffered burns to 45% of his body. He spent the next 3 months in an intensive care unit at the Oregon Burn Center. Tejadas says his arms and legs took the brunt of the burns, and a few of his fingers were amputated.
You know, him being hurt was a devastating blow to us, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And for him to be back is basically an uplift to us.
Just really happy to be here around the people who I love, my second family.
Proud moment for the fire department here.
Tejadas will take on an administrative role within the department.
You know, I think I have a story to tell, a lot of experiences to share.
Mentoring new recruits and sharing his journey.
Sacrifice for sure. Kind of a little bit of shock and awe. You know, this isn't your typical 9 to 5.
And he did go into that house thinking a child was inside, and it turns out no one was inside that house. Those residents, they did get out safely. As for his new role with the department, well, those recruits, they start their training in just about a week. In Gresham, Ashley Grams, KGW News.